All right, we are live. We are live. We are live. We are live. I got you right. Keith, what's going on, man?
What's up, boss?
Man, hey, you know I'm making it, brother. got my coffee, man. Anyway, we are live. Look, man, I need people to like, comment, and share. Like, comment, and share. What we got to do is break this little Facebook technology they got going on, and we want to get as many people involved as possible. Tonight, we are jumping into a very hot topic. Very hot topic. I'm gonna say it like Donald Trump. A very hot topic is very important. We jumped into a very hot topic tonight. A lot of people got their kids at home. A lot of people would love to be able to get some type of answers and resolutions to where we can get back to a sense of normalcy when it comes down to education. Would you agree? Would you agree there, Brother Keith?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do approve this message.
All right, cool. So like, comment, and share. That's exactly what we need for you to do. Tell us, what city are you in, people? What city are you in? I got people that hit me up from all over the place saying that they are in all different types of locations. They supposed to be here tonight. We're bringing in somebody that's very familiar to myself, even to you, Keith, in our community that we come from, Thomasville, Georgia. I'm an expert in the field. We're going to bring her out shortly.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, brother. A lot of people have a lot of questions, and tonight you'll have an opportunity to get a lot of answers. All right, so like, comment, and share. Somebody tell me, what city are you in? I got a few people on here. I need to get a few more people involved in this conversation. When I know that you're there, we got enough people to be worthwhile for us to go ahead and start and get rolling. I want to make sure as many people have an opportunity to be able to hear this expert as possible. All right, cool. Yeah, Key, what are you doing? You trying to get you trying to pay your phone bill or something, man?
No, I ain't trying to pay the phone bill.
You good? All right. Hey, and as usual, we have our permanent co-host tonight, Mr. Keith McIntyre. I had the pleasure of knowing Keith since he was about 13 years old. Very powerful young individual. This is somebody that when you look at him, you say, hey, I want for my son to grow up and be like him. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, that's a far stretch. Don't get
I'm honored.
Yeah, but definitely keeping somebody who's been putting work in the trenches for years. We got a whole entire community that has put Keith on their backs and really poured into him. And he's been able to accomplish a lot at 25 years old. So he is our permanent guest, our permanent co-host for Shift the New World. Shift the New World. Now, with no further ado, we're going to get into the first part. Hold on, let me see who we got coming in already. We got two Thomasvilles. James Banks, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to
That's
see you.
Pastor James Banks.
Yes,
how you doing,
sir.
Pastor?
We awesome, man. We're excited that you showed up today. We got Shalita Shante, the Millionaire Portfolio Group, is in the building. All right. We got let me see, go back. We got Natasha Dukes from Thomasville. We greatly appreciate it. Where else we at, man? I know we got some people sliding in from other places. Where else y'all at? We got Thomasville. We got Broward County in the building. Yeah, by way of Wadesboro, Florida. Okay. All right, cool. Comment where you are. Make sure you comment, like, and share. I already seen a couple. I got a few screens going at the same time, so I already saw a few people share that we going live. You know, hey, that was one of the neat things, man. That with the we got. Hey, look who we got in the building. Joe Burns.
What's up, Joe?
Yes, sir. Good to see you today, partner. Good to see you today. But that was the one interesting thing that came up, man, when we started talking about education. It's a hot topic right now, but when this wasn't going on, you couldn't get anybody to sit there and pay to talk about it. You get what I'm saying? Especially to listen.
Exactly.
You know, so that's where we want to really make a shift into the new direction, into this new world of making education more a priority. You know, it determines so many parts of our lives. You checked out the video, didn't you, Keith?
Yeah, I did.
All right, awesome, man. Hey, did I hit home with it?
You did. Directly.
I did. Okay, if
so
you did not,
that's why I'm excited about this
really
particular episode. Cool. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, every Monday we drop a video every Monday, and it's usually me. You know, right now We'll bring some other people to be able to drop their expertise soon. But every Monday we drop a video, a brand new video that is going into the shift topic. All it's doing is really laying down a foundation so that when we come into a situation like this, we have a great starting point, you know, to be able to start. I'm sorry, man. I'm being distracted by looking at these other activities that's going on. But we have a great foundation that's laid a starting point to where we can really get into the topic of the day. All right, any more visitors? We got any more people that's live that want to tell us? Are you just watching? We really want a lot of engagement. We want people to be able to ask questions. We got somebody who's very phenomenal, has a very extensive background in solving a lot of problems that we're going to be facing in education. You have the opportunity to ask those questions. Make sure you drop the comments. I appreciate it. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first phase of this thing, man. Today. So we had the poll of the day, right? The poll of the night. And this is a very interesting one. You know, I like to use technology, so I'm gonna show this thing. I'm gonna share it on the screen. Application window. Sorry. All right. Man, my eyes, the older I get, the worse my eyes become. But let's see. All right. Oh, that's what I got to do. No, there it is. Okay. All right, cool. So what we're looking at, can you see that, Keith? Because you can see it, then everybody else can see it. All right. So what we're looking at is the question of the night. We put out a poll. We actually did it earlier, man. We got quite a bit of feedback. I'm gonna refresh it too, because I think it was some more people that actually jumped in on it. So I want to make sure I get as many accurate numbers as possible. But the question of the night. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure I get the most accurate feedback before we go into it. I want every voice to be heard and every vote to be counted. But the question of the night was, if they opened up the school today, would you send your child to that school? Would you go ahead and send your child to the school? And the options were, and I guess since I got this thing open, it's gonna move slower. The options were yes, no, and maybe, right? So, okay, yeah, I'm glad I did that because we actually had more votes come in. So you can see that full screen, right?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, so with no further ado, the results for the poll of the night. Would you let your child go back to school if they reopen today? And also keep in mind that you can feel free to comment below. Let's see, we had 37 plus 1, 2. That's my vote, so it don't count. So 37, 39 people said no. And we had 3 people said maybes. I see your face on there, Keith. Saying maybe.
Yeah, I said maybe.
0 people said yes, man. I'm a little surprised at that. I've been hearing a lot of people saying, oh, man, I'm so ready for the kids to go back. I thought we were going to have more people that actually said yes to it.
Yes.
And I'm going to share one comment that was actually on there, right? And this is from my great mother. You know, this is from my mother, later gave birth to me. You know, she said, why would I do that since nothing has changed for the past 2 months other than the death toll continues to rise? Scientists still don't know how to treat or cure it. The cases of non-symptomatic people with the virus have risen, and how would teachers get middle school students to social distance from their friends? That's a pretty valid point, right? And I think that quite a few people are in agreement with that. So that I think you know, from this poll that we see right now, there's quite a few no's coming in. We had Santana Mathis join us today. Santana Mathis join us from Albany. We appreciate you for stopping by. We also have Gent Robinson that came through from Cairo, man. We appreciate you being here tonight, Gent. You know, everybody else, make sure you drop your comments down. We appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it.
Jason, I got a watch party going. So I have Miss Yvette O'Neill on, Shirley Whitehead on, Mamie Davis Linton on. So we say thank y'all for joining us. Thank y'all for tuning in to us.
Oh man. Yeah. Look at Keith, man, bro. That's why I'm
trying to make it do what it do.
I'm why, hey man, look up, man. That's why, hey, I know how to go find some talent, don't I? All right, cool. Now, what we would like to do at this moment, because I'm getting close to it, I need to be able to see though. Okay, I see Miss Anna. She dropped down to the bottom of the screen. What we're gonna do is actually bring. I got two parents. I have one that's online, and then I have another one that is actually had to call in because they're working. But they, they went ahead. They said, "Look, I want to be a part of this," so they called in. So we're not gonna be able to see them, but we'll be able to hear them. We're gonna test that one out. I've never done that before. But first and foremost, we're gonna bring a parent on. And with this parent, we really want to hear some more perspectives from parents of what are their concerns about their kids going to school and, with education, with moving forward, what's going to be next before we dive in, because that gives us a basis to where people that are involved in making these decisions and solving these problems and putting things together, we can actually get feedback directly from the people that are involved with these systems. You follow what I'm saying? All right, so no further ado. You ready, Miss India? We're going to bring you on out right now. All right, cool. Let me see. Make sure I got you. All right, India, how you doing? All right, test your mic. Make sure it's on right.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Let me see. Oh, okay. I can hear you now.
You can hear me now? Okay. I had the headphones on because I got a lot of background noise with the kids being in the house, and we got some extra company over today, but we're going to make it do what it do.
I'm going to tell you, as a parent, I feel your pain. All right, cool. So this was interesting because I was talking to India earlier this week, and she starts expressing things to me. I said, hey, man, you want to just come on the show and tell us all about it? So let me ask you this from a parent standpoint, right? As far as with education, what are your concerns at the moment? Like, what are your concerns as being a parent of children that are school age? What are your concerns with education moving forward? And I'm trying to keep the question kind of broad, right. So that way, to give us really more of a foundation to stand on.
So actually, it's a very broad question, but you can break it down into layers of answers. My biggest thing with the school system is the fact that you have a lot of the educators now that are being hired, but the students are left behind. And in Clayton County, in Georgia, where I live, they have the theme being no child left behind, but there are a lot of children who are still being left behind. They're not aware that these children can read, their level of, writing. Their biggest concern is behavior, because as an educator, when you go in the classroom to teach, you have a big responsibility. Now, mind you, the educators are with our kids more than we are as parents. So you're thinking that when you drop your children off to school, that they're getting the best education that they can. But one of the things that I've really had to fight for, especially for my son, so my daughter's 12, my son is 6. My son has been medically diagnosed ADHD, autism spectrum. And the medical diagnosis, I can understand. However, we don't treat him as such. We treat him like he's a regular little boy going to school. I've had to really advocate to make sure that my son is getting the education that he deserves, not just sending him somewhere 8 hours for the day. So I don't know if you're ready for this whole, me to bring it in with the COVID-19, because you asked me one basic question. So I really just want to answer one question at a time.
Yeah, well, no, I truly respect where you're coming from. We actually had another parent that was supposed to be on tonight. She didn't know that she teaches classes. So she actually had a class that was kind of carrying over, so she wasn't able to make it. But she's actually licensed in mental health. And that was one of the main things that she was really advocating for, was the same exact thing that you just said. So before, if we look at it, before all this stuff took place, right? If we look at, we were already behind the 8 ball and behind the curve of dealing with these issues that were already presented. Now you just drop something brand new into the playing field. Where do we go from here? You get what I'm saying? So now, I fully understand exactly what you're saying. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the same exact thing that she sent me a video, right? And I just don't have the technology to drop that video on the screen.
Yeah.
Look, Jason, I got a quick question. Are you only supposed to be the one to hear her? Because I can't hear her.
You can't hear?
Mm-mm.
How you can't hear it, Keith? I hear it just fine.
I can't hear her.
Hold on, let me press this button right here, man. Nah, okay, mute mic. Okay, matter of fact, if anybody else can hear Miss India, make sure you go ahead and tell us that you can hear. Tell us that you can hear, because I can hear it just fine.
Yeah, I can't hear her.
So you haven't heard a word that she said?
I ain't heard a word she said. But I didn't want to interrupt her because it felt like she was from the heart. She was saying what she's saying from the heart.
Man, you supposed to say that.
I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to interrupt her, but I ain't hear nothing.
Sabrina says she can hear me.
Oh, but the people on my watch party say they can hear, so maybe it's just me.
It's just you, bro.
Let me check. Let me see him, man. Let me see. Good God Almighty.
Okay, hey Keith, I'm gonna let you know that it's real. Okay, I got one.
Oh yeah, they say they hear.
We can hear. 2, we can hear. 3, I can hear as well. 4,
everybody on my watch party said I can hear. I can't hear. Maybe it ain't for me to hear, so I'm just going.
Nah. I have no idea, bro. I have no idea, man.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
me either. My volume is all the way up.
Right, she was passionate, so I didn't want to stop her. So I'm glad everybody else could hear.
Yeah. All right, cool. Okay. Zachary Richardson, man, we appreciate you for showing up, man. Appreciate you being here today. This is a phenomenal. This is one another phenomenal brothers out there, man, with education, boy. I done seen some things.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad we got some more people. And just to add on to that note right there, we did actually have a couple people come in as well saying that they were here. I want to make sure that we acknowledge this legend, this living legend right here, Miss Andre Hadley Mariah. We greatly appreciate you for being here. If it wasn't what I said right here, man, I don't even know. I don't even know where I'll be right now. Definitely appreciate you for being here today. Okay, definitely. All right, cool. So we're moving forward, and we appreciate everybody for dropping those comments so to keep us on track. Now we're moving forward. That was definitely one of the main issues. So Keith, kind of reframe. Can you hear her now?
Can you hear me now? No.
You still can't hear? Okay, so this is kind of to bring you up to speed, because you might not be the only ones having that issue as well. But basically, what India, she was coming from a standpoint of saying that, and just like in her own household, she was already having issues with, I guess we'll just say, with a child that needs more attention, probably than someone else going into a traditional school setting. Am I saying that correctly? Did I paraphrase that right?
And to really make it clear to him so he can understand it, that I understand from both perspectives. My daughter's 12. She doesn't need any assistance, but I've had to advocate more so as a parent with the teachers, not getting the kind of feedback as a parent I should be getting back. Basic communication. How is she doing in class? Like, I don't want to just hear the bad behavior. Okay, I'm on top of that as well. But I want to know academically how she's doing. Please don't send me home anything that if she's struggling in a basic one of her core academic subjects, please don't wait till she gets to a 72, a 70 or failing to contact me, when you can reach out clearly to me and say she's talking a little too much in class. I need to know the good and the bad, and the good and the bad being the academic as well as the behavior.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So Keith, because I had to be Keith's translator. He's the only person out of 1,000 people who can't hear you. So, hey, you gotta think about it. This is what we talking about. She needs, just like how we having some difficulty right here, right?
We having the same difficulty.
Exactly.
Help bridge that gap. Is that? Oh, see how it works out.
Gotcha.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right, definitely. Do you have anything else to add? Because no further ado, we're gonna move forward with the next part of the show. You have anything else?
I do, because I really, as you and I were talking the other day, and you felt my passion coming through the conversation. I am a parent advocate at the schools that my children attend, every grade level. If it's snacks you need, I'm there. If it's field trip volunteers you need, I'm there. So I advocate just as much academically and behavior wise. And so Auntie B really hit it on the head. I mean, she hit the nail on the head. If the school system is not already living up to a standard expectation, how do we then include what we're having to deal with and bridge the gap of what needed to be bridged from the very beginning, and then teach the children how to partake in things like social distancing? I mean, we just literally deal with things like cold and flu seasons, and it's hard for them to keep their mouths covered then. You're talking about a virus that the CDC hasn't even been able to control. At first, they were saying the children can't catch it, and mysteriously, we've been maybe less a half of year into this the COVID-19, and all of a sudden 5 kids end up not sick, but sick to death. So it's not that they couldn't catch it. You guys just were not aware that this is something that the children could catch as well. And so, truth be told, the COVID-19 has literally been a blessing in disguise to me, because the one-on-one that I was advocating for my children in school, I now get to do that at home. They reading more, they're writing more. Oh yes, a blessing in disguise. And so that's the only way that I've been able to really relate to this COVID-19 in regards to education.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we definitely appreciate you for coming and your thoughts. I'm sure that you spoke on the behalf of a lot of parents that are out there. And I'm glad that you're able to take away the silver lining in it of actually being able to have the opportunity to be the advocate for your child, as well as the educator that your child needs.
Right.
Hopefully, moving forward, we'll definitely be able to have more, a school, some type of opportunities for education that provide exactly what it is that your child and children that are in the same type of boat actually deserve as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna phase y'all a little bit, and I greatly appreciate you for coming on.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna phase y'all a little bit.
Okay.
Of course, my partner Kiva has a difficulty once again.
I think she rebooted.
I can hear her now.
Did. I figured you rebooted because Regina was like, "No, it's you, Keith."
Oh, man. All right, Endo, we greatly appreciate you.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
You don't want to spill everything.
No,
so
man. No. No, I mean, everybody in the world said they heard it, man. You know.
Listen, I have technical difficulties every week, man.
All right, so now we're gonna fast forward a little bit, right? I got one more parent, right? With them. They're actually on the phone, so I'm gonna see how this thing works out. Darren, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. What's going on, brother?
We got Darren Davis in the building from Tallahassee, Florida. Another phenomenal individual that just so happens to be a phenomenal father, right?
I appreciate it, bro.
Yes, sir. Let me see. Oh man, I meant to stop doing that. Okay, there we go. All right, cool. So let me see. Now, Darren, this is the main thing. It's really ask you kind of the same question, because you get to see things. You're so involved in the community, especially in Tallahassee, that you get to see a lot of things firsthand on, as well as being the father of your family. So what are some of the main concerns that you have about education, the educational system as we know it, and us gearing up to send our kids into that system?
Well, honestly, I have to agree a lot with what the sister Miss India just said.
Okay.
I see a lot of the same left behindness, if I, for lack of word. But yeah, we're working in the community. What I'm doing, I'm inside, like the projects in the heart of, when we have a lot of disparity. So we get to see when we trust them to the school system, they're not learning and receiving some of the same simple skills like home ec and things of that nature that they taught us. It's so much that's left out of the system nowadays. It seemed to be really just geared upon before the COVID. What I see a lot is just preparation for the standardized test. You get what I'm saying? And we're going in to certain areas, you get to see, like I do my studies, and I see that the schools who have a mass population of, let's just say this particular area, you know, like the areas that surround our hoods. I don't want to call no real areas out like that and make it seem like you know, stuff like that. But
we know what you're talking about.
But when you look at the grade level of those schools, they're D's, man. You know, and just to be on the high side is to C. You get what I'm saying? And that's the problem, because when you have simple things that they're not learning that can really benefit them in their young lives, that helped us out, you know, to help our parents. A lot of them come from, you know, the single family home, like a lot of us. But we learned simple things in school. We had that real connection with our teachers. You know, even though we was in the class with 30 or 20 plus, you know, we still always had that individual time with our teachers, because we had teachers that cared enough, that had the real passion and understanding of where we come from. A lot of the teachers back then wanted to make a difference. You get what I'm saying? And you don't really have that anymore. You don't have that connection. Just like Miss India was saying. That's my whole thing. I would like to see a lot more of that, because that's really what's needed. They're not learning their true, and I can break it down and get into, you know, our actual culture of this beautiful skin. You get what I'm saying? And there's so much that's left out with us, or so much that's watered down in the teaching of it. You get what I'm saying? And that's
I truly understand exactly where you're coming from. And I made sure that I touched on that actual aspect from the video that I did for Monday. And with the video, I really wanted to not so much address, hey, are our kids going to feel safe? Because this is what I keep. The more I talk to parents, it's not so much about, hey, is my kid going to be protected from COVID? Is how is my kid, how is this school system going to be beneficial to my child if he goes back? Like, literally, that's the question that I keep hearing the more that I talk to parents. The kid already at home. We've already kind of adapted and adjusted to a kid being able to do things online. What is there in that system for him to go back into? Like that's literally the message that I keep hearing over and over again directly from parents. You know, so I'm glad that you definitely shared that point of view. And I hope you stay on, man, and hear this phenomenal educator that's gonna come on, because we're gonna go ahead and move forward and spin her in. So I really wanted to make sure that she was able to hear as well the voices of the parents, which a lot of times that are in the seat that she sat in as being a superintendent, being a consultant, she hasn't been able to always hear. You know, like, you know, she hasn't had the opportunities to always hear it firsthand. So with you chiming in, India chiming in, even Miss Usher that chimed in and, you know, attempted to be here tonight, and the parents that we've talked to just in this past week alone, you know, we definitely have enough information to be able to kind of have a great conversation for tonight. That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
And then we had another person on the watch party. She said, Miss Mamie Davis Lynchon said we need to teach more mechanical skills.
Yeah,
that was a comment that was made.
Yeah, and that's the point. That's the skills, because we had those shop classes. You remember the little wood cars with the CO2 cartridge? You got to make the car, and then you shot it and raced them with your class and stuff like this. All that stuff gone.
Well, there's a reason and a purpose behind all of that, you know, and that's going in a little bit. That's diving in a little bit deeper, you know. So I really, for me, I really appreciate any time, you know, that we have parents that are actually interested in seeing, like, hey, there's a problem here, and actually being even more interested of figuring out what do we do about it. You know, what's the solution? So definitely, we truly appreciate you. Now, with no further ado, man, I'm gonna go ahead and spin on to the next portion, so we can go ahead and gear up and bring out Miss Sabrina Everett and have this phenomenal.
Just want to say it was nice to meet you too, Keith. I follow you, brother.
Yeah, you see,
nice to meet you. Appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Definitely. All right, we appreciate you for chiming in. You didn't have to be here, man. I'm glad you made some time for it, Darren.
Oh man, appreciate the invite, bro.
Okay, definitely, brother.
All right, big brother.
All right, so we got Darren there, man. That was definitely some impactful thing. We had a couple more comments come in as well. Let me see. Oh man, yeah, we got some pretty good comments coming in. Expectations, the letter grades. All right. So-called simple things okay, we're gonna save those for the phenomenal one. Right. So with no further ado, before we get there, I want to make sure that we explain to people exactly what it is that you're watching. This is something that we do once a week. We committed to bring this to you once a week. And the program that you're watching tonight, and I guess we'll call it a program, but we came up with a thing called Shift, right? And Shift, all it is that Shift is every now and then there are things that occur in life to where people have to make some type of adjustment to. If you don't make the adjustment, there's going to be people that fall to the wayside. So Shift is an opportunity. It's a platform that can really empower people and to have a vehicle to use. You remember I used the video with the thing when you came on. We talking about the vehicles, two things that you need in order to move forward, and that's have a vehicle and a platform. So we're using Shift as our vehicle to drive us, to the platform that is going to build up our true foundation to handle and adjust, to make our adjustments in the real world that's out there. I hope I ain't go all the way around the circle to kind of present that. So I just want to make sure that people understand this is not a thing. This ain't no talk show. This ain't no radio show. And this is about real life, us solving our real life problems, taking control of our real life issues and doing something about it so we can make sure that we live real lives that we want to live at the end of the day for us and our children, our families. Bottom line. Ain't that something, Keith? Hey, I'm going to share this one right here with you, Keith. Hey, man, I don't play no games with coming down to my marketing and my promotion, right? Man, I seen out about a 1,500 text message. You got one.
I'm like, that's Jasen.
Right now.
That's just Jasen right now.
I'm just going to tell you, well, I believe in what I'm doing, man. I'm going to tell you and everybody else. I'm going to go ahead and put a disclaimer out there into the world right now. I promise you. I had somebody respond back to me. I ain't going to call nobody out. I ain't going to say no names, but they told me, stop it. Stop it. Ain't no stopping this train. No, there's something that needs to be done, right? These solutions need to be provided. These problems need to be solved. We need to do something. It's only up to us for us to make it happen. So ain't no stopping this train. Whatever we have to do to get the attention of the people, whatever we have to put together to engage people and move them in a way that's actually going to help all us out, that's what we're going to do. Ain't that right, my brother Keith?
That's what we're going to do. So with or without you.
Yeah, definitely. And with no further ado, right, I'm not gonna hold no more punches. We're gonna go ahead and get everything out the way. If you have comments, you have questions for Miss Dr. Sabrina Everett, who we're about to bring out right now, go ahead and start dropping them. We have about a 10-second lag. If you have questions, anything that's going to be pertaining to the educational system, anything like that, we have one person that we are bringing out right now who can really help steer that direction. Okay, if she can't answer it, and she can't answer it, man, hey, I don't know who can.
Only God can.
So okay, she could probably get on. With no further ado, we're gonna bring Miss Dr. Sabrina Everett. Miss Everett, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Hey, Keith.
You so awesome. But definitely. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and put your name up here. I'm trying to make the adjustment to not calling you the superintendent because you are way much more, right?
Yes.
So, to introduce you, because there are people in different various markets and various places that are watching this. So to introduce you to everyone that's out there, I really want for them to understand how phenomenal you really are. I've been able to see it firsthand. For me, my experience, my direct experience was that when I first got involved in education, and I'm going to tell you, I had somebody tell me, just keep in mind, I do not have any type of degree or piece of paper that says I know what it is I'm doing. But when I had, I started putting something together for the Boys and Girls Club where I was engaging middle school students, going directly into the middle schools, which you allow for me and us to do. I had this idea. I said, you know what? I would love to go into the classrooms and be able to teach classes to students inside the classroom. I actually had someone, I shared that idea, that vision with somebody, and they looked me in my eyes and told me, you cannot do that because you don't have a piece of paper. I said, okay. Then I had another talk with somebody else and shared that idea with them. They said, well, hey, let's go ahead and set up the meeting. And that's what I did. I literally set up the meeting the next day. I called your office, set up the meeting. When I set up the meeting, he said, all right, when can you meet? I'm thinking you're gonna put me off a couple months or something. You put me off for the next week. So here it is. Now I got a week to come up. What in the world am I gonna do? Because I didn't know. Yeah. But definitely without Miss Everett, I never would have had an opportunity to be able to walk in my light and my vision. You know, and I'm greatly appreciated for having that in my, you know, having that opportunity to even get to know you and say that I know you and put you down on some of my resumes and stuff. So, but definitely. So let's get this straight. I want to put the facts out there. Miss Everett, superintendent, the former superintendent of Thomasville City School District, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Also, that's a school district that's been around for over 100 plus years, right?
Exactly.
Okay. You are also, let me make sure that I fact check. I'm trying to shoot out the top of my mind, but let me make sure I fact check. Were you the longest running superintendent in the history of that district?
Yes, for 13 years.
13 years. So you were the longest running superintendent in a school district that's been around for over 100 plus years. On top of that, weren't you the first female superintendent as well?
First female.
And the first superintendent of color as well too, right?
First superintendent of color, that's correct.
Hey, so let's go. So just in a nutshell, that is the caliber of person that's sitting right here in front of you. We're talking about South Georgia, right? So to accomplish just those three things right there, just being in the office in itself and staying in the office, really, I think it truly says a mouthful for anyone who is not already familiar with you. So were you able to hear the parents that came on and the concerns that they had?
I did. I actually made some notes from Miss India's comments and also Derek. I didn't catch his last name.
David. David.
But I did make some notes. And of course, what they brought up was well beyond coronavirus. They brought up concerns that have been ongoing since I've been in education. I started in education in 1983. But when I talk to old school educators, particularly administrators and teachers of color, Derek actually touched on it, which is for a whole nother conversation. It's the change in the cultural sensitivity and cultural awareness that has made a big shift in how we communicate with parents, how parents communicate with educators. I will tell you, that is one of the biggest impediments that's not spoken about, but the nuances of the African American community and how we engage parents into that process. I know that from my experience. My first through sixth grade years was pre-integration, pre-mandatory integration at Susie Dunlap School, and there was a great cultural shift for me when I went to Douglas Middle School. The relationship with teachers, when those students from Dunlap went to that school, we were told, I'll never forget this one math teacher who would tell you, put your hands down. I'm sure you didn't learn that at Dunlap. Yeah. So, you know, you have some of that same mentality, unfortunately now, where people will make judgments about your capacity as a student and as a professional based on race, based on socioeconomic status. But there are many assumptions about our households, our parents, our children. And when Miss India talked about communication, and she said not only being connected with the teacher for negative reports, but also the teacher taking time for positive reports. On the flip side of that, educators say, well, parents need to come when times are good and not just when times are bad. One of the challenges that we had was getting parents out for opportunities to empower themselves to be better advocates. But of course, if there was any controversy, we could always count on a crowd. So that works both ways when you talk about being present for the positive as well as being so intentional for the negative. That communication is just critical. And it needs to be respectful and supportive both ways. But when Miss India mentioned that, teachers just seem to be disconnected, a true fact behind that is that many teachers, particularly in, and I can speak for Thomasville City Schools, but I taught in Virginia, Jacksonville, Charlottesville, Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia, Charleston, South Carolina. One of the biggest issues was that teachers were not from the community.
Yeah.
That's a big challenge. When I was growing up here in Thomasville City Schools, I knew my teachers. So many times parents can't connect to teachers. We probably had, and I can speak in the past tense, probably a good third of our teachers were not teachers in our community. Children need to, and parents need to see teachers at church. Of course, we all see everyone at Walmart, but we need to see parents in our teachers in the community so that you can connect outside of that person who sits behind the desk, pointing the finger, telling the parent what you're possibly not doing right and what you need to do more of as a parent. That puts all parties on the defense. And so what she talked about with the pre-coronavirus concerns, I will be the first to say she's not off base. She is very much on target with her observations. It's unfortunate that there's such a disciplined focus. And at the same time, one of the things that I personally stopped asking children, do you talk to your parents that way? When we talked about discipline. And when I had to intervene many times where children were disrespectful to their parents, a lot of teachers will throw their hands up when they observe that, and they'll say, well, if you're disrespectful to your mother, you're going to be definitely disrespectful to me. Now, that's not all. That's certainly not all, because there are some parents I had to, take a time out so they could calm down, because I knew what was next. It was a good whipping coming down the line. And you have to have enough of a relationship with people to say, let's just be calm. Let's get everything on the table. And let's look not only at what the teachers are telling you about what your child is doing. But one thing that I think many of my colleagues can tell you, and the teachers, is that I was not one to automatically say, well, just because the teacher said it, it was the absolute truth.
Yeah.
And there may be some teachers disappointed in hearing me say that, but they know the reality. Many times, it was not just that the student was not being respectful. I did have to actually intervene in some situations where there was evidence that the teacher incited the child to the point of being disrespectful. And certainly children need to understand their place, so to speak. But we also have to understand that, even a dog responds to a pat on the head versus a kick. So, building those relationships where it's respectful and supportive, that's pre-coronavirus. That's, that's back to the beginning of time. And like I said, those cultural nuances as to why perhaps our parents can't connect is another show in and of itself. I will say minority recruitment with teachers was something that we were very diligent in doing in Thomasville City Schools, trying to make sure that we had a sense of diversity at all levels. I've been gone now for 3 years, actually, this month. And, whether that landscape continues to be the same or not, I don't know. I try to keep my nose out of the operations of Thomasville City Schools. However, there are parents who still come to me for some informal guidance, and I'm very much willing to do that. As far as the classrooms, yes, classrooms have become so focused on testing that we are just, we're tested to the gills with kids. It's focused. When you get into the rhetoric of why we do so much of the testing, that's tied to teacher accountability. Accountability about what children are learning and how well teachers do informal and formal assessments of their children. But I will tell you, that is not just about learning. It's also about economics. You have many companies trying to sell packages to schools where teachers learn scripts about delivery. But one thing for sure, when you get a seasoned teacher who knows how to step outside of just the teacher handbook when a child says, I don't understand, and the teacher actually can demonstrate and show how you derive at an answer, not tell a child, go back and read the instructions again. That gets lost. A lot of teachers in understanding it's not just about the child rereading the instructions to do a task. I think much of the accountability for the teacher is to be able to step outside of your teacher guide and demonstrate what that child needs to see. Some children need to see every step, every process. We can't assume what children know and don't know. Be willing to address those children individually, and show that you are creditable. You're sitting there as teacher saying, do as I do, maybe just do as I say. But there has to be some credibility that when a child asks you questions, that you have an exhaustive level of knowledge to be able to explain and demonstrate for those children where reading the instructions is not just enough. I've heard that from a lot of parents just with Corona, where they're reaching out, because we forget that parents haven't been taught to be teachers. So when we tell parents, just go back and read the instructions, that's when it's time to take a pause and earn that respect and regard from that parent by saying, this is how I would explain it to them. Because I'll admit, I was in Atlanta a few months ago, right before there was mandatory shutdown, with my little granddaughter, who's just a first grader. And when I'm trying to teach her how to add and carry factors in math, it's don't do it like that anymore. So we can't assume that any parent knows or not knows or does not know how to teach their child. Math is math, but the process, those steps, from the question to the answer, how you get there is very different. And educators have to remember that you have old school parents like me who are grandparents trying to teach a new way of doing math. So the assumptions can't be, well, the parents are illiterate, so they can't possibly teach.
Well, you got old school parents like me. I feel like I'm old school with all this new math, this and new math. You came out with 5 new maths. I didn't get the first one right,
Absolutely. Well, Derek said it, and I think someone else commented. He called them this, I think, simple skills, those basic skills. As we get so caught up in trying to prepare our children for this high-tech world that we live in now, there are still some very basic, and maybe basic is not the word because it seems to minimize the importance of certain types of jobs and skills. But I am ending my tenure now being on the Southern Regional Technical College's board of directors. And month after month, when I see the reports that come out of the job accessibility, you know, jobs that some feel are less than. When I bring a technician to my home and they're making $85 an hour just to look at something and tell me what's wrong, and then I'm paying them an additional $85 an hour, it's not necessarily the skill set behind that student that is a traditional 4-year degree. So some of the things that Derek mentioned about mechanical skills and perhaps home care type skills, a lot of that has gone by the wayside because we are so preoccupied with preparing everybody for a high-tech job. And it has nothing to do with the person's capacity. We need to start looking at job trends. We need to stop looking at, you know, what are those jobs that are most sought after that are not necessarily a traditional or 4-year pathway. Children have to learn that for themselves, but we need to guide them through just robust academic counseling when those children get in middle school, not high school, but middle school.
Definitely. Okay. Now, with all that being said, we actually had, like, because, you know, I had some questions directly for you, but the comment thing started jumping up the more that you talk. So we have a couple of questions. I think everything is pretty much steering us in that direction. Do you mind answering some of these questions that
I'll try. I don't mind saying I don't know. I won't make it up. I'll try.
Okay. All right, so cool. So we got the first question here, right? And this is really, I think, what the direction I was looking at. Keep in mind, this question I know is coming from out of South Florida. So it's a little, I know that's going to be a little different, but coming from a superintendent's, you know, superintendents have a very difficult decision to make this year.
Absolutely.
You know, so hey, and I think that you would agree that you know, it's probably a good time to be a retired superintendent, correct?
It's a blessed time to not have to make a decision, Jasen, that quite frankly I think is a life or death decision. I don't think that comment is overly dramatic, but because I was a teacher and because I had to make decisions every day that I thought were big decisions because of the impact it had on the lives of my students, it's nothing compared to this. I personally believe it's a life or death decision for your staff, for your students, and for the families behind those students. When I think about just the interaction alone, where we know from listening to the news and listening from the data that many children are coming back being tested as asymptomatic. And you look at that small percentage. I pulled up a few bits of data before coming on, and it's right at 2% or less the number of children who have tested positive overall, not Georgia, not, you know, but overall in these cases. But I don't think that we need to minimize the importance of looking at that low percentage. Someone came to my house the other day to do some work and said they didn't believe in wearing a mask because they felt like they were immune to the virus. And 99% of the people recover. And I said, well, I'm wearing a mask because I don't want to be in that 1%. So I think we have to consider that unless there is a definite plan, unless there is a specific protocol for implementation, and not just implementation, but maintaining and revising as need be. All of those components need to be set forth in guidance for the return to school. I've heard that some communities are going to do staggered or rotation schedules. I'm still not quite sure, knowing the size of classrooms, how you are going to maintain the recommended social distancing.
Yeah.
India mentioned that we are, going to be going into a cold and flu season. And sometimes the attendance rates are negatively impacted just by common childhood, illnesses, strep throat, and those types of things. This is so far beyond that. I, as a parent, now, of course, my children are grown. I do have grandchildren, but I have said this to my son and his wife. Unless that school can come up with not just a broad that we are working, we're looking into it, we, have something that we want to implement as far as cleaning, all parents need to ask for a specific. We don't need right now for parents to be given a broad sense of, well, this is all the information and you can feel safe. As a parent, I'm like Miss India. It's very important. Advocacy for your child is very important. And I think that what happens, particularly in the African American community and other communities of color, we are not that diverse in this part of Georgia necessarily in our schools as far as having non-African American minorities. But for those numbers of students, we still need to be able to effectively communicate with those parents. But in coming back to school, unless there is a specific protocol, detailed protocol, I personally would struggle with telling parents you can safely send your children back into our schools. I know what that overhaul, I've looked at it, I've studied it, what that would look like just from my own perspective from Thomasville City Schools. I have spoken with the superintendent, the current superintendent, and he says that superintendents across the state are meeting and discussing this weekly, but there's not a definitive plan at this time. And I can see that. I don't know that there's a definitive plan anywhere. I did want to tell parents tonight that you can go online, and you had mentioned to me, Jasen, that you wanted to also have some information where community people would know how to find out about the whole transitioning and how to maintain under this coronavirus. The best place I've seen guidance is a website, just coronavirus.gov. That's where you can find the CDC guidelines. Also for parents as advocates, so that you know what is being sprayed around your child. Teachers as self-advocates, so that you know what you're spraying around your students and yourself. And then for our churches and any entity looking to deep clean, the EPA has a list of disinfectant products, because people have to be mindful that as you spray Lysol, if you have a child who has allergies, you're going to exacerbate those children's, conditions and their reactions. They also look at that EPA list, because I'm always mindful of what toxins I'm putting in the air in my home. So as a community, from your homes, churches, schools, and even your businesses, look at that coronavirus.gov website, and you can see the various guidance, and it's very broad. But as a parent advocate now, not the superintendent, but as an advocate for parents, which is what I do now, I would want a very specific, detailed outline. There's not going to be one that's all inclusive. It's impossible because we've never done this. We've never been through this before. But I think more than just a categorical, we have to develop a plan. We have to implement a plan. We have to maintain and revise the plan. That's not enough. There's a lot of detail that would have to go under each of those three areas as the school systems have conversations with parents and others in the community so that we can feel safe and we can feel that our children are safe.
Definitely. All right. Well, we had another question. That I mean, you hit on so much. I tell you, every time I talk to you, I just feel a whole lot smarter. But we actually have another question. It's a concrete question here. This one's coming out of I believe North Florida by way of Thomas County, and that's Thomas County Central. Actually, I believe we ain't gonna talk too much about them, but however. But he had a great question. How can we incorporate cultural/group economics into the education system?
Well, generally, if we accept the value of diversity when we are speaking to children, all children, and in our daily routine, we don't just set aside a month to incorporate cultural economics into the school district, but we talk about it every day. We first have to establish a level of proficiency in those discussions with the teachers themselves. Teachers and no one else can't talk about those things where they have not been oriented themselves to understand what it's all about. But I think that the true incorporation, the true creation of diversity in education is to speak about it as it is. It's a part of our all day, everyday conversation. We need to be knowledgeable enough so that when we start talking about certain inventions and certain just everyday things that we see in our lives, a natural conversation is to incorporate that as a matter of fact, not as if it's some newly discovered phenomenon that, when we are teaching our children, for example, well, that the stop sign tells us to stop, and we're teaching the children symbols and shapes and words. Another natural conversation, whether it's home or whether it's at school, is when you're at that traffic light, you can educate your children by saying, did you know that the inventor of the traffic light was an African-American inventor? And start talking about those things in natural conversations. We don't need to isolate the incorporation of cultural and group economics in the educational system by only teaching that during Black History Month. It needs to be incorporated into all of our curricular areas. Now, where that starts is not just with our wanting that to happen, but it starts again with parents educating themselves as advocates that when schools purchase materials, you look for materials where there is an express diversity throughout that book. If it's nothing but storybooks, then do you have a diverse palette of books from which children can select and see children who look like themselves? When you are looking at materials to teach social studies, does that historical lesson incorporate other cultures, or are we just talking about cultures or information that may be presented based on one person's perspective that might not be so diverse. I think that's probably a politically correct way to say, make sure that those books reflect all ethnicities in the pictures, in the information. That's how you truly incorporate it. I don't think that you necessarily have a separate class. One of the limits in smaller school districts is a specialized class like that could always get pushback to say, well, the funding, that's local funding for a special class. It doesn't have to be a special class. All students need to hear that all the time, every day.
All the time, every day. Mm-hmm. Definitely. And yeah, definitely. So with and the kind of I believe you might have touched on a hot topic here, because we got another one that's kind of spinning off of that with the economics. Okay, and this one our own right here, Zach Jackson out of Thompson. However, where's Zach? I don't even know what Zach is right now. I know he's in the military, but he's somewhere.
He's in the military.
Yeah, that's one.
I don't know exactly where he is though.
Oh, awesome. So he asked a very great question here. I had to share it. And that is, what is a way not to only incorporate cultural economics, but a financial life lesson such as credit and entrepreneurship as a whole? Because it's something that we see as minorities struggle with coming out of high school, etc. Would that fall into the same line of what you just said, or is that's something a little different?
Well, a little different, but pretty much in that same line of discussion. I'm not sure if Mr. Jackson is thinking that should start at middle and high school. I would say that it's not limited to middle and high school as far as an academic presentation on those topics. I think we can start in elementary schools. I know you know Mr. Levi Williams. Mr. Levi Williams and I went to visit a school district where the community saw value in teaching those life lessons about finance and credit. And they set up in their school a little miniature lesson opportunity, almost like learning stations, but you had a bank who allowed children to open their own little savings accounts in that bank. And they started learning how to save money. You had I think it was a grocery store sponsor where you had little snacks and things so that children understood, well, if I save my money over here at our little school bank, it will give me the money I need to go over here and buy my little snacks. So you had those industries in the community who came into the school setting and set up opportunities for students to learn those things by way of their exposure very early on. Very early on. Whether that could be incorporated in the school system, now certainly I can't say, but I think it's doable. If it was doable in that district, it's doable elsewhere. That you have to have community involvement. I do know that Katrina Williams has offered and has a curriculum for teenage, and I'm not sure how young that curriculum goes, but she and I have talked about that importance. And so through Boys and Girls Club, the Resource Center and other entities, that's when you start getting what the school can't do, because the school can't do everything. That's when your churches, your community organizations, your fraternities, your sororities, your social groups get together and decide this is something we're going to do for children. And it does not have to be limited to certainly just your minority children's participation. It should be open and available to all children. To all children in the community.
Exactly. And if I could say something right here, I love the fact that I think Thank God for the Boys and Girls Club. I thank God for the boys. Even when I was a teenager, I didn't want to go in those classes. The Money Matters, the Career Lunch, the Smart Moves. I thank God for those. Those are those type programs that the schools are not able to teach, but after school they're able to go and get these different programs, learn how to save money, learn how to make smart choices, decisions, know how to say no to drugs and different things of that nature. So that those programs at the Boys and Girls Club, the Resource Center, I thank God for those programs that are doing what they can do to help educate not only our our colored kids, but any kid, white, black, Mexican, Hispanic, all of them. So I really thank God. I throw my hats off to the Boys and Girls Club and the Resource Center and those type of entities.
They do an extraordinary job, and I say the younger the exposure, the better, because when we start just teaching children those things, just teaching them when they've already, especially if they're teenagers, you've already worked. And if you've not learned that I don't need to buy a new pair of sneakers every week when I get paid, it's kind of hard to deprogram that thinking. So the earlier the intervention, regardless of, whether it's your basic reading, writing, math, English, science, social studies, it goes beyond just the basics starting early, but all those life skills, financial and economic knowledge needs to start early. Even if we have to work with parents as a way to bring that into the home, there are community entities like Ms. Katrina who they're willing to do that, and I know that they are. They've expressed that to me, and just need an opportunity and an invitation.
Exactly.
Definitely, and I think really a huge takeaway, because normally when I wrap everything up, I do a final thought. I ain't got to do that to kind of keep everything into a nutshell, because what I'm hearing is that one, we're gonna have issues as parents, grandparents, members of the community. We're gonna have issues looking at it, like, because it's one thing to tell people to go back to work, but it's another thing we start talking about sending these babies off to school. We can't take no chances with that part. Me personally, I don't feel comfortable at this standpoint with my own household. I don't feel comfortable with it. I've been homeschooling my 15-year-old since December anyway. So I'm not in no rush. I love for my daughter to have, my 4-year-old to have somewhere to go, because she driving people crazy. But what I look at is that there is the biggest part of this whole thing for me is that we are at a place to where a parent that might not be comfortable, and I haven't heard anybody spell this one out yet, but a parent that might not be comfortable with sending a child into this educational system, right? That we know, a parent that may not be comfortable, but at the same time might not be in a situation to where they feel like they truly have a choice.
That's right.
We have plenty of parents that if they don't have somewhere for their kids to go, well, then they can't go out and put food on the table because they don't have a babysitter. So that is one of the biggest things that I haven't heard mentioned yet, but I've heard it consistently over the past 3 or 4 weeks. What am I going to do if I don't have something, for my child? And for me, the major issue, and I think you kind of spin it with the more and more that people come in and ask questions, it kind of kept coming out that if we're in a situation to where we have to even ask ourselves, do I put my child in a place I'm not 100% sure that it's ready for my child to be there? If I have to make a decision like that, well, then why is my situation so much like that? And I think I heard somebody really hit it home when they put out is two words: self-sufficiency. It's even with Zach bringing up, hey, financial literacy, real world education, the hands-on stuff that the guy was talking about, the simple stuff, the hands-on stuff. That's technical skills, technical training. If the educational system is not providing it, why are we providing it for ourselves? That's really the spin I want to make sure in this conversation that really gets heard. And I think I'm hearing it kind of come together. I look at the big picture and try to bridge the gap. You know, I'm always the bridge between this side and that side. So what I'm hearing is that there kind of may be a little bit of give and take here with, okay, this is what is provided over here with these resources, and this is what we can make happen over here with our resources, and we can come together to give that total package of the education that we want for our children.
That's right.
You know, that
it's certainly a catch-22 for parents, because without childcare, many people cannot go back to work, and so many of us are not in a privileged situation to be able to work from home. Some jobs, it's an impossibility to work from home, but so many parents absolutely cannot work from home. And that's a reality, but you have to have somewhere to put your children.
Yeah.
And there will even be a limit on child care, you know, daycare, not only schools, but private daycare for the numbers of children they'll be able to safely distance and maintain a sense of comfort about whether the environment is safe. And the other thing that I'll give one last little caveat for those parents who are truly working hard to advocate for their children. This issue has come up. Actually, it was discussed on CNN. Dr. Sanjay Gupta spoke about the issue of equity and access. As we start talking about distance learning, that is a point that parents need to bring to the forefront. That yes, we have the capacity to do it, but is it done with a sense and a focus on equity and access to all communities? That does not have to do with race. That has to do with access to the technology itself. And then equitable, whether it is accessible to all households everywhere. Sometimes in rural Georgia and other rural communities, not just Georgia, but I know in rural South Georgia, you're limited sometimes just by the technology limitations, not so much whether you don't have a device, but you may not have connectivity. And in that case, distance learning does you no good whatsoever.
Exactly.
So parents need to ask those questions.
Okay. And we had one more question. I'm trying to find it again because we had quite a few comments come on. I wish there was a way to kind of separate it for them, but we're gonna answer. You know, we can tackle this one more question. I know you got to get to doing what you were doing. You know, so let me see. I'm trying. Here it is, because he actually he posted it on here twice. So what do we do for parents that are having difficulty teaching subject matter at home?
Well, Reverend Banks, that is a very challenging question, because you're trying to teach the parent as you teach the children, and the more difficult the subject matter, the more of a challenge that is. All that I can tell you is that, one, teachers would need to help parents seek out those resources that might assist them where perhaps a teacher cannot. I don't know that a teacher would be able to give me enough information for me to feel comfortable teaching a physics class. You know, and I would be a parent that would be assumed to, well, you're educated, you ought to be able to do this. No, not necessarily. That's not my area of expertise. So I think the best thing that we can do for parents that are having difficulty teaching the subject matter at home, one, is to be patient and provide as much support as we can. And that may be direct support from the teacher to the parent, or it may be that the teacher can find a resource, for example, a YouTube demonstration video of solving a certain type of problem or teaching a lesson. There are tons of resources out there. Parents may not know where to find those. So I think that it becomes more of our responsibility as educators to connect parents to the resources if we can't give that support directly.
Definitely. All right, well, definitely. I wish that we could get to, cause I keep seeing more comments and questions coming. I wish we could get to all of them tonight, but hey, we got to get some type of rest, right? We ain't robot, So we're moving forward, and I really believe, we're moving forward because I truly feel like we have a great platform that's coming together. This is only our third show, Keith.
Yeah,
So I feel like we have a great platform that's coming together. It's allowing for people to be exposed to people that they might not be normally exposed to. So I believe we have a great platform coming together with that. So I always look at, okay, one of my strengths has always been engagement. I know how to engage people, but once we engage them, how do we carry it over to the next portion? How do we organize it, structured, and start tackling some real world solutions? So really with the takeaway, if and I know your one of your strengths is definitely organization. So with the takeaway of being able with us putting this platform together, what do you say could be a great takeaway even for us as we move forward of being able to organize and to a way to where we can really begin to produce some great results out of this? You got any advice? You got any advice for me? You got some free
having at your fingertips as much information as you can, factual. You fact check what you find, but having as much information as possible at your fingertips so that you educate yourself about the process of moving through those conversations with schools. Just like you don't get a manual as to how to be a first-time mom, there's no manual that continues to tell you how to engage with the school. But there are many entities, I think, who could provide, say, a forum for those types of conversations. I'm only aware of one parent advocacy group that meets, or they used to meet at Douglas. Miss Lucinda Brown, I think, was overseeing that group, and they had many discussions on Monday nights, I believe it was. That type of regular and committed topical meeting, such as what you're doing, you can't talk all the way around the world every time, but you have some topics to help keep the conversation within certain boundaries so that you can accomplish something. We need to have more of those types of community forums. We can meet when we want to raise sand about something. We need to meet so that when we are raising that sand, it can be productive and we can come armed with the knowledge that these are questions because we know we have a right to ask and to expect certain things. Miss India needs to talk to me about her son. She mentioned with the special needs. There are certain deliveries of an academic program that he's entitled to, that she needs to make sure that he's not caught in the gap and that Corona is the excuse. He has an IEP that says there's no excuse, I'm sure. So arming yourself with information, creating forums that are by topic so that we can get these things out, bring people to the table who have been there. They know the twists and turns and the convoluted way sometimes that's purposely put at the feet of parents, so they throw their hands up and say, oh my God, if I have to go through all that red tape. Sometimes that's what people count on, that you'll get so frustrated you'll walk away. You have to be diligent and you have to persevere in the right kind of way so that being disrespectful doesn't become the excuse not to talk to you, but that you are armed and ready. And there's no need to yell, because when you go in with your stuff together, you don't even need to raise your voice. You just have to know what you're talking about. And the person on the other side of that table needs to understand that.
Definitely. All right, cool. So definitely we're moving forward. I think we definitely it was a pleasure having you on. You know,
thank you so much, Miss Sabrina.
I'm so supportive of whatever you do, Jason. And there are a lot of conversations to be had. If there's a way for me to address the many questions that you have that have come up, I'll be willing to try to address that with those parents individually or on your posts.
Okay.
Just let me know.
Yeah, these posts, this video is going to replay. So the questions that come in the comments are going to be there. I'm also aware that sometimes people, they comment from outside because this thing broadcasts from so many different places. People have started watch parties, all that. They share the video. So a lot of times it'll be on the other posts. So we can't see it until later. So what we can do, people just comment anything, any questions, any comments that you have, just do that. We'll go through and start looking at them. You can also inbox. They'll inbox because this is being hosted through the Shift page and 2 of my personal pages. So if you have, as well as Team Motivation page. So if you have any questions or answers with that, if you have any questions for Miss Everett, any questions for me, how you can be involved with anything we're doing, anything Miss Everett's doing, just any questions, period, about anything. If we don't know somebody, if we don't know it, we know somebody that nobody, you know, so we can help connect those dots. Just inbox anything, any questions. You can comment, you know, if you want to comment something, but you don't want your personal business being out there, you can always jump in any one of the inboxes. And we can definitely help you all out. All right, cool. So with all that being said, I'm gonna tell you one more time, is there? Yeah, hopefully you catch us out. We're gonna make this. We made a commitment to stick with this every Tuesday, and we'll grow it and build it. You know, as long as we possibly can, we'll push it as long as we possibly can. You know, every Tuesday we go live at 7 p.m. on the Shift page every Tuesday. Also, there's a video that comes out every Monday, so people can already kind of be informed. We want to make this is our goal. We want to make, I don't know if you know about this guy, but this is Rainbow Hair guy, right? That likes to rap and stuff. You know, I don't know if you know anything about him, but this guy right here, right? There was this guy, you know, he's a rapper, but this rapper, he's got rainbow colored hair, braids, right? This guy went on Instagram, and instantly he went on Instagram and just started talking for about 45 minutes, an hour, talking about absolutely nothing that mattered in the real world. Just giving his own personal opinion. Do you know this guy in 1 hour got 2 million views in 1 hour? 2 million. 2 million people were locked and loaded on looking at his information. In the middle of a pandemic, this is what people were interested in. So what I really want to, my lifelong mission is to be able to, you know, this guy right here can get 2 million. Why can't we get at least one? And it don't have to be me. It need to be somebody, you know, somebody that's able to give us the information that we really need to hear. Or it might not so much be that people are not giving the information. We just might not be interested in what they're talking about. So the shift got to take place somewhere. And you know, so we're definitely committed to being able to create a vehicle and a platform that puts that together. And we greatly appreciate you for, you know, being in those trenches and doing all the stuff behind those closed doors that so many people have no idea about it. I was fortunate and blessed just to see just a few, just to have a snippet of some of the most difficult decisions that I've ever seen a person have to make, you know, by sitting in the office that you sat in. So you know, with all that, I definitely salute you, and we all do. We're so appreciative of you, and definitely appreciative of you tonight. So
I thank you for the opportunity.
Definitely. So Keith, you want to close us out, man? If all hearts are wet.
If all hearts and minds are clear, until we meet again.
And that's the bottom line. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7.